All right. Well, I have 7 o'clock on my watch here, so we'll go ahead and get started. Very happy to have Villanova University here as part of our session this evening. On behalf of West Virginia ACRAO, my name is Taylor Richmond. I'm a past president and exec board member of the association. We're glad that you decided to join us this evening. We're glad to have Justin Ledesma here with us on behalf of Villanova. We're excited for the next 45 minutes to let him share all that he has to provide us regarding his great institution. Just a quick few housekeeping items. This is obviously a virtual presentation, but all of our attendees have their mics and cameras turned off, so Justin can't see or hear you. However, he is monitoring the question and answers aspect of this tool. So please, if you have any questions that come up throughout his presentation, utilize that function. He will have within the 45 minutes to answer any that he can. This is a recorded presentation, so if you've missed anything or you want to share or come back, you can follow up and watch again. And if there's any questions that Justin doesn't get to in the Q&A, he's provided a transcript of all the questions that are asked and can respond directly to the participants and their questions after the fact. So again, on behalf of West Virginia ACRAO, which is the West Virginia Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers, as well as our partner StrideScan, again, we thank you for being here. You're visiting with Villanova University, one of many sessions that we are putting on through these 3 weeks. We encourage you to attend as many sessions as you have the opportunity to do so. The more that you attend, the more questions you ask, the more answers you have, and the better choice you'll make for your academic future. Again, please take the opportunity to share or visit afterwards. Our website has a list of all those sessions. That is WVACRAO.org. You'll find all our sessions as well as recorded sessions on that site. Again, that is WVACRAO.org. With that, I'll be back in 45 minutes. But in the meantime, you're in great hands with Justin Ledesma from Villanova University. Take it away, Justin.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Taylor, and thank you, for inviting me to participate. As an admission counselor over at Villanova, one of the things that we always like to mention right at the very beginning is that we do review applications by geographic region, and I do have responsibilities for the state of West Virginia. So if any of the students who are on this Zoom call, if you decide that you'd like to apply, I'm the guy who gets to read your application. So if you have questions, if there are any rumors about the admission process that I can dispel and make this a less stressful process, I'm excited to try to do that for you. Now, one of the reasons why I also have this responsibility for West Virginia, back when I was in college, which was quite a few years ago, my roommate from college was from West Virginia. He grew up from Parkersburg, and I would tell you, he is a great guy, and a lot of the other folks I've met from your state, I think, have been really awesome. So I am a big believer that we should have more folks from West Virginia with us over at Villanova University. So hopefully I'll be able to say a few things that might strike your interest and certainly answer your questions. On that whole topic, please feel free to put questions into the Q&A box and everything like that. But just understand that I will address those once we get to the end of the presentation. So please be patient, and I have you for the next 40-ish minutes or so to tell you all sorts of really great things about Villanova. So to get things started, I'm going to share my screen, and please bear with me as this always takes a little bit of maneuvering, so hang on just a moment. And if you've never been to Villanova before, I always like to show everybody a map here. And of course, this is just on Google Maps. And, I know you're all over the state in West Virginia, but so I picked Charleston, your capital, to kind of do the directions from. And if you decide that you want to make the drive over to our campus, it'll be a fairly all-day affair, about 450 miles or so to get to our neck of the woods in the southeastern corner of Pennsylvania. So about a 7-hour drive, or you can certainly hop on a plane from Charleston and get over to Philadelphia International, and our airport is about 30 minutes away from campus. It says 4 hours here, but I think that's with a connection somewhere. And last time I checked, I did fly into West Virginia last year. There are direct flights running on American twice a day, so you can certainly do that if that's a little bit more convenient for you. So let's shift gears a little bit, and then we'll jump over to this presentation here. And I'm always a big fan of sharing this with you folks, only because I think there are so many great photos of campus, and since we don't have have that opportunity to do this presentation from Villanova, I hope that this will give you a good idea as to how things look, what the feel is of our university. So just starting off, I start with this picture here because I think this is the most recognizable building at Villanova, and that, of course, is our church. If you didn't know already, Villanova is a proud Catholic Augustinian university, and though the strong majority of students at Villanova do identify with the Catholic faith, it is not a requirement. You do not have to be Catholic to attend our school. So it is true, it is the strong majority, about 75% based on some surveys that we do each year, but the other 25%, I think it create a really great situation because they do represent a wide range of other religions at our school. So that other 25% represent students of a Jewish faith. We have students who are Islamic. We have students who represent other Christian denominations. And I would tell you that when we are in our classrooms, I wouldn't be surprised that one of our professors might bring up this idea of ethics and morality in any of the classes that you might be taking at our school. And I would tell you the lessons that we want to share with you there would certainly transcend any idea of religious division. And I would also just add to that that our students at Villanova are so keen on this idea of different perspective, learning from other people, really learning how your background might have influenced your thought process and everything along those lines. I think it's such a great opportunity to be learning from other people. So I think everybody at Villanova, whether you are Catholic or not, really do feel like you have a place at our school. You feel welcomed, and I think that welcoming atmosphere creates this very positive environment. That positivity really makes it easy for our students to give back and volunteer. We have a tremendous sense of school spirit, and in response, I think a lot of our athletes and teams like to win. So I think it is a pretty fun place to be when it comes to all aspects of life at our school. Now, let's take a different look at campus just from a different angle here. And this, of course, is more of an aerial shot. And I'm such a big fan of this picture here because I think it really shows off all this green space that we have at Villanova. So just to clarify, we are not in Philadelphia proper. We're about 12 miles away from the 5th biggest city in the country. And I think when you see all these fields that are on campus, and even in the center of the picture, you'll see the ellipse, which I would call the heart of campus, the center part of campus, and you would see oftentimes a lot of students hanging out in that area, especially during the lunch hour. I think a lot of our students like to congregate there because it's a great place to catch up with your friends, to be seen, and everything along those lines. And also on those fields, I think we have a pretty athletic student body. As classes start to let out in the early afternoon, it's pretty common to find students playing soccer and ultimate frisbee and spike ball, just trying to blow off a little bit of steam before they hit the books later on in the evening. I think it's a great way to get yourself in that right mindset. Now, again, we're not in Philadelphia proper, so if you do look off in the distance on the horizon, you'll actually see the skyscrapers that make up Philadelphia. And of course, we are in the midst of COVID-19 right now, and while we haven't sequestered our students on campus, we certainly have, provided the advice that if at all possible, if you can stay put on campus, I think that creates a safer situation for all of our students. Now, in more normal times, though, I think our students are very excited to make the trip into Philadelphia. It's pretty easy to make happen. We have 2 trains that stop right on Villanova's campus, and we can get you there in about 25 minutes. And whenever I'm in the city, I might run into some Villanova students that I know, and I always find that the students are there for a wide range of reasons, which can include checking out the different restaurants, getting something good to eat. There are so many great places to sample when it comes to a lot of different great cooking that is in the area. Of course, students like music, and there are a lot of great opportunities to see live music, whether that's at a big venue or at some of the smaller places where you can catch some of the up-and-coming artists who are touring through the Philadelphia area. You can certainly check out theater, plays, everything along those lines, sporting events, and of course, on a more practical sense, I would tell you that a lot of companies have established a presence in the Philadelphia area, and that really lends itself to some great opportunities for students to do their internships and potentially to find permanent jobs after graduation. So I think it's the best of both worlds that we do have this big city nearby, but on Villanova's campus, I think it gets a little bit quieter. And I think that is helpful for our students to really focus in on their studies, to get to bed at a decent hour, but again, pretty easy for our students to take advantage of Philadelphia nearby. So here's another picture of campus right here. So this is a different circular field. This is Mendel Field at Villanova. And I would just point out, if you look at this road right here, this is Lancaster Avenue, US 30. And this actually leads all the way into Philadelphia. If you drive about 12 miles on it, you'll eventually get there. But you get another picture of our picturesque campus over at our university. Okay. So speaking on this idea of travel, just pointing out other places that are nearby. We're in very close proximity to Washington, D.C. and New York City. Very easy, just about 2 hours to each of those cities. So if you wanted to check out, the nation's capital, if you wanted to see a speaker talk over in New York City, it's pretty easy for our students to make that happen, whether that is driving in their own cars or certainly you can ride trains that will get you right there. There is a lot of great public transportation over in our neck of the woods here on the East Coast. Okay, and speaking of that idea of travel, normally I am traveling all around the United States, actually physically visiting a lot of high schools all across the country. And I always think that if there is a chance for me to visit another college, I am so interested in making that happen. I think colleges and universities are such a great insight into our American culture. And also at the same time, I think it's very cool just to see how other schools approach education, to see what their traditions might be. And the first thing that I look for when I step foot on a different campus is these seals that you see at these different colleges. I think the folks who have designed these seals, these artists, have really put a lot of thought into these university seals. I think you can learn so much about a school's history by looking at these symbols, but also at the same time, really get a good sense of that school's direction. What are the things that they hope to achieve in the very near future? And Villanova, I think, has put all that information into our university seals. So I can certainly explain a few things just by looking at it. So the first thing I'll draw your attention to is the year that Villanova was established. 1842. So if you do the math on that, we've been around for about 178 years. So history, tradition, those ideas are pretty important to us back over at our school. But I would also tell you that 178 years is plenty of time to establish a pretty strong reputation. So talking to folks all across the country, I know many people believe that we are doing some really outstanding things in our classrooms at Villanova. And I think that's evidenced by what happens to our students once they graduate. What are they up to? What are the things that they accomplish in that near future? And I would point to the class of 2019. They're the ones that we have the most recent statistics for. And when you look at that group, you would see that 97% of them, within 6 months of their graduation date, had began their very first jobs, or they went off to grad school, law school, or med school. So I think that shows that our students really hit the ground running. I think it shows that they have a really solid plan in place. And even in some cases, they have a few contingencies ready to go should things change or anything along those lines. And I've been at Villanova since 2006. I certainly saw the downturn in the economy in 2007 and 2008, and I saw our students flex with that new situation that they were a part of. Certainly with the pandemic in the last year, I think our students had to be flexible as far as what was happening with study abroad, and of course, finding their jobs and everything like that. I think that flexibility is something that we certainly teach our students at our school. Okay, and then the one other number I would just throw out there is that our average starting salary for that group 2019 was about $59,000 a year, which I think is pretty impressive for our students who are 21 or 22 years old to be making that amount of money once they leave our school. We certainly want to put them in a great position so students can potentially purchase their first homes, purchase cars, and iPads and Xboxes and PlayStations, all those other important things in life. I think our students do pretty well with those salaries. Okay, so what else can we see on this university seal? Once again, a lot of religious symbolism. So once again, we are a Catholic school. There are so many great ways to tell that we are a Catholic school. We pointed out to the church earlier in the presentation. Going along with that, we do have priests and religious brothers who live, work, and teach at Villanova. Most of them belong to the Augustinian order, and I'll explain what that means in just a moment. But I would tell you that my favorite way, folks, to tell that we are a Catholic school occurs on Wednesdays. And students, I would just let you know that Wednesday is our uniform day. And we have worked very hard to make sure that these uniforms are stylish on hotter days, that they're comfortable. And students, I have to tell you that I'm totally joking. I'm kidding. There are no uniforms at Villanova, so you do not need to worry about that. I see that our participant number is remaining steady, so no one has signed off just yet. I promise I have better jokes to share with you as we press on. Okay, so what else can we talk about? That whole idea of being Augustinian. So our priests belong to the Order of Saint Augustine, and if you've heard of Saint Augustine, or if you haven't, I'll explain a few things. Augustine lived in the 4th and 5th century. He served as bishop in Africa, and even though that was such a long time ago, a lot of his ideas, his teachings still impact the Catholic Church today, and of course still impact Villanova today. Augustine often spoke about education, and he said that in education, we seek not only to transform a student's mind, but also transform their hearts as well. And I think it's that idea that really speaks volumes about the types of students who are looking to attend Villanova University. And I would say at the other end of that, these are the types of students that our admission office is trying to recruit. I would often describe these students as the ones who want to do great things in the classroom. So that's why test scores and grades have been important parts of the admission process in years past. But I guess the big piece of news that I can share with you folks is that for the first time ever, Villanova University is test optional with this application cycle. So what does that mean? A student, if you have an SAT score, if you have an ACT score, if you would like that included as part of your admission process, we can certainly make that happen. Or at the other end of it, you can indicate that you will not be sending test scores to us. We will review your file. We will not use testing as a factor in your admission decision. Now, over the last several weeks, I've had a chance to speak to many students, and I've gotten this impression that a few students out there really believe that this whole test optional idea is some sort of weird trick question that we're putting out there to try to fool students or something to that effect. And as I talk to students, you know, they sometimes have asked me, you know, if I tell you that I'm not sending tests, are you back in your office talking with your colleagues about the terrible SAT score that I must be trying to hide? And I would just tell you that we at Villanova, I would tell you all the schools out there are really not looking at test optional in that way. That's not really the whole spirit of the idea. And I would just say that over the last several decades, many folks out there have certainly pointed to this overemphasis on the SAT and ACT scores. And there is certainly a lot of data out there that would really show that an SAT score and ACT score is not an indication of the type of student that you are. It doesn't measure your level of success coming up in the future. So a lot of people have certainly been moving to this idea that we should certainly de-emphasize, you know, the test in the overall process. And as we've started to explore this over the last couple of months, I would tell you there are many folks at Villanova who certainly see the merit and the value of that. So I just want students to understand that it is not a disadvantage if you decide that you do not want to send us tests. If you indicate that on the application, you are not hurting yourself in this admission process. And we can certainly answer more questions about that as we press on. But all that being said, I would say, you know, for students, it's not solely about these SAT scores. It's not just about this GPA number. There are a lot of things that really go into this admission process. So on the other end of the academics, I would tell you that we are also looking for students who have a passion for things outside of the classroom as well, and are always taking the chances to give back to their communities. So I think there are so many different ways that you can do this, and I would just give you a few examples, some of my favorites. I would tell you we really do value athletes at Villanova. I think someone who has been on a team, someone who has, you know, really worked hard on a sport can really show you, you know, that they have a drive for excellence, that they always want to work and get better. They also can show us in many ways that they value working well with other people. They know what it is to be a part of a team. They value teamwork. So I think those are all ideas and things that you can emphasize in your application. I think it's also really great for students to show leadership. So if you've had a chance to be elected as a class officer or lead students in some other way, I think that's another thing that you can also really highlight in your application as well. On the other end of it, I would also talk about service. Service is a great way to give back to other people. That's something that we really encourage for our students. even during their time here at our university. And for anybody who sings, who dances, who has acted in a play or musical, or plays an instrument, I got to tell you, you hold a special place in my heart. I'm someone who has been in my high school musical. I play an instrument. In fact, I'm sitting in front of my piano right now. So, you know, I would tell you that I think it's such a great way to share your gifts, your talents with other people. And we want you to keep doing those things, to bring all those things with you to Villanova and to continue to share them with our campus community. In my opinion, it's that type of student, that strong combination of the academic piece, you know, that focus on community. It's that type of student that will do really well at our school. It's that type of student that will make the most of their time at Villanova. Okay, and I think all these ideas are further reflected in these 3 Latin words that are on the seal. The words are veritas, unitas, and caritas. And I mention them because all of our students at Villanova could tell you the meaning of these words because they really drive everything that happens at our school. So for any of you students who are taking Romance languages right now, like Spanish or French, you might recognize veritas. Of course, Latin has close ties over to these Romance languages. And the close word in Spanish would be verdad, and in French it would be vérité. And both of those words you might know translate as this idea of truth. Now, we are a school, we're an academic institution, so the pursuit of truth is clearly one of our biggest priorities. And we do that in about 50 different academic majors, which you can see right over here. The majors themselves are organized into 5 main categories. So you have liberal arts, you have the sciences, business, engineering, and nursing. Now, when you apply to Villanova, you must apply directly to one of those 5 areas. And it is true that we will look at the applications differently from college to college. So as an example, if you were to apply for engineering, I would tell you that when I saw your file, I might be laser focused on your math and science performance, more so than for a student who might be applying for a political science program. And I think when you consider that, that does make perfect sense. The other idea is the number of students who apply to specific areas could make a program more or potentially less competitive. So I would let you know, to give you this insight, I've been working at the university since 2006. Every single year that I've been at Villanova, the School of Business has received more applications than any of the other areas. So arguably, they are the tougher of the 5 to be admitted to. So that may be something you want to think about as you choose your academic program to apply for. Now, when you apply, I would also kind of include this information that engineers, our nursing students are required to choose a major on the actual application. For nursing, that's pretty easy. There's only one major there. For our engineers, you have to choose between chemical, civil, computer, electrical, and mechanical. I would point out as well that engineering is the one college at Villanova that allows a student to list 2 choices for majors. They have to be engineering ones. So I would point out that mechanical and chemical have been the 2 most popular areas, so arguably the 2 tougher ones to get into. So it would make sense for you to list one of those as your first choice. If you had an interest in civil, computer, or electrical, you could certainly list that as a second choice major. For the sciences, you can apply as a science exploratory student, but I would point out that that can be a fairly difficult way to be admitted. In many cases, you might be better off in choosing an actual major to apply for. And I would point out, if you're thinking about this whole idea of med school, any of our majors, not just the science ones, all of our majors at Villanova could serve as your foundation for med school. So we can certainly get you ready out of any of those different areas. Now, the other thing is with business, you are applying as general business, and liberal arts, you apply as general liberal arts, and you actually are required to choose your major at the end of your sophomore year after having a little bit of exposure to all the different programs. And I think that's very helpful for our students to make choices for their actual academic program. Now, we fully encourage our students to double major and really take on wide-ranging interests. So if you want to double major across colleges, that is very well possible. You can even add minors and concentrations, and you can see some examples over here. And if you find that you don't like what you start off in, you can definitely switch and change into another program. So there is that level of versatility for our students and their academic areas. Okay? Now, going back to this idea of truth, it's certainly not just about that academic oceanic piece, I think this idea of perspective is something that really can affect this idea of truth. So many students would tell you that your own personal point of view, your own perspective can really change what truth might mean. So all that being said, when we put together our freshman class, about 1,600 students altogether, there's a total of about 6,500 undergrads who attend Villanova. I think we have this idea of diversity of thought in mind as we put that class together. So I think we want as much representation from as many different groups as we can make possible. And so when we look at that, I would tell you we start off with the male-female breakdown, and we would certainly want as even of a split as we can make happen, I should say. And I would just say that we're quite nearly there. 51% female, 49% male. We certainly want students to come from so many different places. So there is a wide breadth of international perspective with students representing 50 different countries. And also at Villanova, we are covering right now 48 different states. In case you're wondering, the two missing states at Villanova happen to be North Dakota and Alaska. So if any of you folks have a cousin or close friend in high school at this point looking at colleges, mention Villanova to them, as we would love to complete our set here at our school. But we also, look beyond just the states that you come from. I think there is so much perspective taking a closer look at your background. And that's why I think, when we are looking at students, we equally value the perspective that comes from coming from a rural area, coming from an urban area, coming from the suburbs, all of that. We look at differences in socioeconomics. We look at differences in ethnicity. I think all these different perspectives, these different opinions and thoughts really do add to the classroom experience and the classroom discussion. Our students are very fond of saying that while we learn so much from our professors in so many different places, the other great source of information are the students themselves. We learn from each other and we learn together, which gets us to that second word, unitas, or unity. And that when we bring up this idea, we talk about community at Villanova. And I think we have this really outstanding, very positive community. And part of what really drives that is the fact that almost everybody lives on campus. We guarantee housing for your freshman, sophomore, and junior year. And I would tell you that 99% of the freshmen and sophomores live in our buildings. It does dip down to about 85% for our juniors. And I would tell you up until last year, almost the entire senior class have been living off campus, sort of as their way to ease themselves into the real world, their rite of passage, to really get ready for life after graduation. So all that being said, we built 6 new residence halls last year. We invited the seniors to return to campus, and we were pretty pleased that about 25% of them decided to come back to campus. And I think that's something that has further galvanized, further strengthened our university community. I think our seniors are very excited about the idea of serving as mentors and as guides for our younger students, and they have certainly added a new dimension to our community at Villanova. Now, of course, it's not just the community on campus that we pay attention to. We certainly look to better the environment that surrounds us all together, and that's why our third word, caritas, is such an important idea as well. That deals with love and charity, and this, of course, deals with volunteerism. So first off, you don't have to volunteer for anything if you don't want to, but I think our students quickly pick up this lesson that if there is an opportunity to help somebody out, you should really try to make that happen. And if there is no time to do so, you can try to make that time. And I think it's such a great sign of how our students prioritize things in their lives. And while they may be very pressed for time with, being social with their friends and their classwork and other things, students will try to find time to give back to others. And I think that's always such a great thing. And there's so many great examples of us doing this. We certainly tutor students at area schools, but my favorite example is the fact that we run the largest college-sponsored Special Olympics program in the world. Last year, right around November, we had 5,000 athletes competing at Villanova, and if you can imagine, it takes several hundreds of us to really prepare those fields, to keep score, to referee games, to do all sorts of things to make sure that this event happens. And if you had a chance to be on campus during Special Olympics, if you had a chance to speak to any of our students, we are so excited, so proud that that is happening right on our campus, and that is something that we really value at our university. Okay, so all that being said, I'm going to shift gears and we're going to jump into the application process real fast. And just to give you a little bit of an idea on numbers, you can see for the freshmen that are currently at Villanova right now, we are one of a handful of schools that are operating in person when it comes to colleges in the Philadelphia area. So the majority of our students are on campus right now. But we received about 22,000 applications to be a part of that freshman class that's currently in place. Now, I would point out that our admit rate last year was right around 29%. And if you do the math on that, that equates to about 6,400 students, which is way more than the actual 1,600 students that we need to make up the freshman class. But, you know, these students who are applying to Villanova, I would tell you that they are very good at what they're doing. They have a lot of great options when it comes to going off to college all across the country. And so that being said, we have to admit about 6,400 to eventually get to the 1,600 that we actually need at our school. And I don't mention these numbers to be intimidating or anything along those lines, but I think having a real understanding of the numbers, the admit rates, everything along those lines can really alleviate a little bit of the stress associated with applying. Now, when it comes to your application options, there are 4 ways that you could apply to Villanova. Early action and regular decision are the oldest ways. They've been around since I started working in 2006 and probably even before that. And they're the most popular ways because they're non-binding agreements. If you apply early action or regular decision, if you are admitted, you have all the way until May 1st to make your decision as to what school you'll be attending. And you are free to head off to any of the schools that you've been admitted. You're not locked in. And I think all the students who apply that way really do appreciate that. Now, before I mention this idea of early decision 1 and early decision 2, let me quickly just mention this notion of demonstrated interest. You may have heard of it, you may not have, but I'll quickly explain that a lot of admission experts out there really believe that we should track all the different times that you students talk to us as a university. So the fact that you folks are here, we'll actually get a list. We will upload that into our database, and I could see that see any of the students who attended this event a little bit later on. I would point out that if there was a college fair to attend in the next couple of weeks, if you talk to me there, that would also be added to your file. And if you wanted to, you could also email me and tell me how amazing this presentation was. Not only would that make me feel great about life, but that would also be added to your file. I'm only kidding about mentioning how great the presentation was. I'm just joking, of course. So all that being said, those same admission experts would want us to quantify that, and potentially I could look back at a student's file in February of their senior year, and I could see that potentially that Jennifer talked to me 22 times over the course of the year. Those same admission experts would say, Jennifer is clearly very interested in your school. She talked to you so many times. She is very likely to end up going, so you should give her an easier pathway to admission. So a lot of admission schools do operate in that way, and I do think it's a fair question to ask me and any of the other schools that you're considering, do you use demonstrated interest as a factor in the admission process? And if they say yes to you, you can certainly use that and strategize about how you want to keep in contact with that school. But I would tell you that Villanova's answer to that question is actually no, we do not. And there are a lot of reasons why we don't use demonstrated interest in that way. But the main thing that I would hope for any student that talks to me in this college admission process is when you get to your senior year, when you approach those deadlines, my hope is that you hit submit on the application and that maybe you forgot about it for another couple of months until you receive that decision letter. Now, when I talk to students, over the next couple of months about the idea of demonstrated interest, I find that students can be very stressed out. Some students have said to me, it feels like you have this lingering homework assignment that just looms over you every single day until you receive your decision letter. And that sounds like a terrible way to spend your senior year. And when I look back at my high school years, I certainly look back fondly. I think I had a really great time. And there are so many things, to really focus on and really enjoy. And that can certainly be, hanging out with your teammates, while you play a sport. It could be being a part of the school play, the school musical, all these different things. Hanging out with your friends in that senior year. And then, of course, hanging out with your family. As things change and you go off to college, you're not going to have, that exact same experience. So all that being said, I want you to be 100% present for all of those things and not really stress out about the college admission process. But all that being said, we do want to reward students who want to be at our school. And the way that we can make that happen is through the early decision process. And so I often describe early decision as this deal between the students and between us as a college. The students' end of this bargain is that they're committing to Villanova. And if you are admitted, you must drop all of your other applications at other schools, and you will definitely be attending our university. And our end of it is that we are going to give you the easiest pathway to get to be admitted to Villanova. The numbers that really bear this out, once again, 29% admit rate overall last year. But I would tell you, for the students who applied under early decision, they were admitted at a rate of about 58%. So you can see the pretty stark difference between the two, about twice as strong, right? And I don't tell you that to convince anybody that you should be applying early decision, but I would just give you this advice, that if you get to October of your senior year, and if you can say to yourself, you know, I did all my visits, I've done all the research I can, I have a clear number one choice on my list, and that happens to be Villanova or potentially another school, I think it's at that point that you start exploring this idea of early decision because of that easier pathway that may exist. Now, this other caveat that I would throw out there for you is, if you are waiting on financial aid, if scholarships are going to be a big deciding factor in your admission process, I would certainly dissuade you at that point from applying early decision. For Villanova, the main reason is the timelines just don't match up very well. So you would be required to commit with early decision around mid-January, and with the scholarship and financial aid process, you get that information around late March. So if you want that information to help you make a good choice, it just won't be available when you would need it. So I would certainly encourage you to hold off on applying early decision if that happens to be the case. Okay? Now, with early decision 2, you know, it should work about the same way as early decision 1. This is our first year doing it, but I think the main reason why we added early decision 2 is through conversations that we've had with students over the last couple of months. Some students were hesitant to commit, you know, with early decision in October of their senior year, but as the months progressed, things changed, and they were ready to commit around January. So that's the main reason why early decision 2 exists at this point. Now, the last thing that I'm going to go over before I turn it over for your questions is just the components that make up the application. We are a Common App exclusive school, so the only way to apply to Villanova is through the Common Application. I would point out that the transcript is the area that I spend most of my time looking at when I review an application, and that's because there's so much information as far as your grades, the types of classes that you've taken, looking for upward and downward trends as far as the classes and grades that you have, all those sorts of things. So that's why we spend a lot of time on the transcript. Once again, we are test optional, so you can send us tests, or you don't have to if you don't want to. And then, of course, we look at that list of activities for all the reasons that we mentioned earlier. There are 2 letters of recommendation that you have to send in, one from one of your teachers, one from your counseling office. And then the last thing is 3 essays that you have to write. And, you know, when I say 3 essays, I think that sometimes scares students. In years past, we only had 2 essays, but the length of the essay was actually fairly long. So we really sharply decreased that. So I think it's not a very strenuous assignment at all. So you obviously have to write the Common App essay. And there are 4 questions that Villanova is asking as part of the Villanova essay. You only have to choose one of them and write just about 250 words on that topic. So I think, you know, just about a page will probably suffice as far as that word length and everything like that. And then the last thing we ask you to do is to talk about why you're interested in Villanova, and you have about 100 words to cover that essay topic. So once again, I don't think a very strenuous assignment at all. And with that, I guess I'm going to wrap it up, and I'm going to kind of stop. Well, actually, we'll just leave this up just in case anybody needs this. But if you have questions, I would encourage you to type them into the Q&A section, and I'll check. There are no questions at the moment, but does anybody have any questions?
Justin, thank you so much for your presentation. That was a lot of fantastic information about Villanova. I'm sure everyone that is watching along has probably most of their questions answered, and that's maybe why a lot of them haven't come in yet. So take the opportunity, and I'll ask you a question and maybe get some folks going. Oh, we see one just popped up. So
yeah, all right. Yeah, I'll click over there, see what they say. What do you do about parking at Villanova? So I would tell you, that we don't really allow all of our students at Villanova to bring cars. And I know this can be a very foreign idea. I grew up in Michigan, and, as being part of the Motor City, we are married to our automobiles over in Michigan. And so the idea of moving over to the East Coast and potentially using public transportation was certainly a pretty big hoop for me to jump through. So all that being said, I think there are such great options, and you would see the convenience when you see the Philadelphia and the traffic issues that we sometimes have to deal with, why you might want to forego the car in that specific situation. So I think there are advantages to not bringing your car, but if you do want to bring one, I would tell you, you can bring one as early as your junior year. So I know that does sound a little scary, if you do love your car and everything like that, but if you wanted to, you can get to junior year status faster through advanced placement credit by taking some heavier loads, and so technically you could do so sooner. But yes, there is enough parking, for our juniors and for our seniors on Villanova's campus. I hope that helps.
I know that's always a popular question for all of our college representatives is who does or does not allow cars on campus. So thanks, Justin, for answering that.
Sure.
I got one for you. I'm a small town West Virginia guy. What would you say to someone who might have some hesitancy jumping to near or in the big city?
Okay, yeah. I have many friends, who have grown up in a similar way. I think they've enjoyed, the lifestyle that they've grown up with and everything like that. And yeah, the big city can be a little bit overwhelming. But what I have found is that once the students get their feet wet and see all the opportunities, the fun things that you can be doing in the city, it's pretty easy to embrace that. So I know, with a big city, there can be, just the advice of using common sense and everything along those lines. And we really do talk about that during orientation and everything along those lines, to certainly be, exploring the city, but doing so, in a group, to be among your friends as you do this. So, people can be looking out for you. And again, with our community, I think that's something that we easily embrace there. But, I think when people see, the great restaurants, when they see, the live music venues, the sporting events that we can go to, and of course, again, the opportunities when it comes to, jobs and everything like that, I think, that fear goes away pretty quickly. If you want to call it fear, I guess, maybe just hesitance, I would probably be more accurate to say. Let's see. So we see Garrett has a couple of questions here. So he's asking, do we offer, what are the style of dorms that we have? Suites, apartments, things like that. So I would tell you that freshman and sophomore year, you have the more traditional residence halls. Almost all of our freshmen are assigned to doubles. So 2 students per room, and your bathroom is in the hallway, that you share among the rest of the other students. And I always think that's kind of a fun way of how our community develops, as you get ready for the start of classes in the morning, that you greet your neighbors and everything else along those lines. But, when you get to your junior year and also your senior year, we do shift over to that apartment style idea that you're mentioning. And so our junior buildings, our senior year buildings have that apartment style where you have separate bedrooms, but also a kitchen, a bathroom, a living room in your one room. And it's usually 2 students per bedroom, but you have that common space and a little bit more privacy in your junior and in your senior year. Okay.
All right, great. As soon as I come on, no one shows up.
Sure, yeah, they keep fooling you there, Taylor. So how are students in the College of Engineering Computer Science as a major? So in fact, I'll point out, computer science exists in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and I'm not sure if you can clarify the question specifically. Are you asking about the strength of the program? I would say, computer science is a very strong program at Villanova. Part of the philosophy is to not just teach computer languages, but really understand the philosophy of how languages work and everything along those lines. So, as technology updates and, students may be using C++ or Java or whatever it may be, these are the computer languages I learned a long time ago. I don't know if they're still in effect right now or not, but, as things outdate, you are not locked into, that cycle. You are able to essentially evolve and go on to the next big thing. And I think that's what a lot of our students appreciate. But the number of students in computer science, that number actually escapes me. So I apologize for not knowing, but you should receive my email address once we're done. I would encourage you to ask me the question again over email, and I can certainly find the right people who can help me answer the actual number of computer science majors. I would point out that our science students number about 18% of the 6,500 students who attend Villanova, but within that, I don't know the breakdown from major to major. Okay, so let's see. So Garrett's also asking about kinesiology. So I would say, like, we could kind of cover some things, but I would say that schools that offer specific kinesiology majors will be your better bet if you are looking to pursue that.
Right. I unmuted myself to spark another question, but I don't see one coming up.
Don't hesitate, Taylor.
So maybe just highlight, Justin, some of the benefits. This is a West Virginia, so you're speaking to West Virginia students. Some of the benefits of going out of state. You're one of the few out of state sessions that we have.
Okay.
That different dynamic, or maybe some of the benefits of making that selection instead of going to one of our in-state options.
Sure. Yeah. I certainly can't, downplay, the advantages of going to WVU or any of the other state institutions. But I would say that, if you attended Villanova, there's certainly some networking opportunities that will be different. I would just mention. So, just as far as our location, we're near Philadelphia. We're not too far from New York City. So, a lot of those big financial positions are in those cities, and, being in close proximity could be an advantage in securing a job in those areas. So I would certainly point to that. I would point to the network of Villanova graduates. I think Villanova, you would see with that sense of school spirit, just a lot of pride, and folks who have maybe somewhat of an unhealthy bias towards other Villanova students. And as you go through your job search process, many of these folks are in the hiring positions at a lot of great companies that you might be interested in. And while they may be very excited to hold the door open for you and make sure that you get the interview, I certainly would point out that it's your responsibility to go rushing right through the door and wowing that employer. So, I think that they really want to be involved and help you out as much as possible, but we can't just hand you the position or anything like that. But, all that being said, that network can be so great, so welcoming. And I would tell you, especially on the East Coast, you could be in Boston, you can be in DC, you could be in New York City. And, when Villanova's on the TV, it can be a pretty exciting thing to see all those other Villanova graduates, cheering on the team in whatever sport it might be.
I do miss the days when we WVU, anyways, was playing you guys. Those were some great.
Oh yeah.
So I'm sure we'll meet up again very soon. Well, Justin, thank you so much for your time you're presenting today. Thank you for all who attended and asked questions. Hopefully we got all the questions that you came with answered today. If not, and you'd like to rewatch this presentation, again, this is a recorded session and will be provided on our website within the next week at westvirginiaacrao.org. Again, that's WVACRAO.org. As well as, while you're there, check out all the other sessions that we have. Not only are they college or institution specific, like Justin's presentation on Villanova, but they have some great information sessions on various aspects about the college search process, or various other aspects of choosing the college or preparing for college that you may need to know more about. When we close here, which will be in just a few seconds, there will be a quick survey. It's about 4 questions. We please ask that you participate and complete that. It does help us improve sessions for future students. So again, Justin, thank you so much. Thank you for our participants and attendees. On behalf of West Virginia ACRAO and StriveScan, please have a great night, and we'll hopefully see you very soon.
All right. Stay safe, everybody. Go Cats. We'll talk to you soon, okay?